City Attorney Tom Carpenter, and they told me that he was going to receive an award. I don't think that Tom knew about it at the time. And I graciously said, yes, I would. Well, as time went on, it turned out that Tom was going to be on vacation, and they asked me to go ahead and accept the award on his behalf, which I was very honored to do. And so at that meeting, I was able to give my comments about Tom, and I'd like to just briefly mention those tonight. Most of you probably have some recollection of that. I know that certainly Director Compuris and Director Adcock in particular will have the long time history on this. But I first met Tom. Well, I actually knew Tom before I became the city attorney. Tom started with the city in 1984, 40 years ago. He was one of my senior assistants when I became the city attorney in 1985. And then when I went on to be the prosecuting attorney, Tom was selected and appointed as the city attorney for Little Rock, and has been in that position ever since. What I think is really distinguishing about this is that Tom is truly an amazing, dedicated public official. And for those of us who've been around for a while, we recognize that back in those days, every single thing that ever happened in the city was done under the guidance and direction of the city attorney, and in particular Tom Carpenter. I will tell you that Tom and I, during my tenure, the end of the city limits was Shackleton Road, and we developed all of the Chenal Valley and all the financial center areas, and all of that was done during our tenure and during Tom's tenure. Every election, every bond election, every revenue tax election, our sales tax elections, our special elections, in fact, 2 different opportunities for modification of the form of government that we live under, were all done with Tom's direction and advice. All of the bond issues that have been done, all were done under the guidance of Tom Carpenter. The award that Tom has received, and I am honored on behalf of the Pulaski County Bar Association to make this presentation, is called the Lawyer Citizen Award. And it's presented to Tom in recognition for his contributions of both time and talents to the community that bestow honor on both themselves and the legal profession. Tom is truly a lawyer citizen, and he is well deserving of this award. And I'd like to ask him to come forward and accept this plaque and your appreciation for what he does for the city and for the community.
First, I want to thank Mark for 2 things: a gracious introduction and avoiding all the arguments that we had with we're working with the city attorney. And I want to say that it is with a great deal of humility that I accept this. There are tremendous lawyer citizens that are being recognized. In fact, our board, Kendra Pruitt, who spends incredible hours pushing the city. Colette Honorable, who is one of our shining stars. Rick Campbell from the Mitchell firm, who has done yeoman's work in so many areas. Bill Spivey, who coached Central's high female soccer team. William Waddell, who's been chancellor to the United Methodist Church for more years than I can imagine. Steve Schultz, who took a case all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court at his expense about the inequitable way in which telephone calls to families from visitors were taken. Carolyn Witherspoon, who worked in our office at one point and was one of the first female presidents of the Arkansas Bar Association. Those are the people who deserve this award. So Their honor and yours, Mark. So, thank you.
One final note, Carolyn Witherspoon actually had the foresight to hire Tom back in 1984. And I will say that, as Tom mentioned, we lawyers obviously get trained to argue, so it's not unusual that Tom and I would have spirited debates about a variety of issues before the city. And it was all done with good conscience about what is best in terms of how to move forward with the city. And that kind of spirited intellectual debate between lawyers, I think, always resolved itself in a better opportunity for the city. And Tom has been a dear friend for 40 years, and I am glad to see that he's continuing. I don't know how long he's going to last, but certainly he's done a yeoman's job so far, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with him in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Another round of applause for City Attorney Bob. Vice Mayor Webb.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. I have a motion before we get to the consent agenda, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to move to rescind 4 items from the May 21st meeting. Item 14, which was Z9656A. Item 15, Z9656B. Item 17, Z9941. Item 21, Z9962. And place them in the grouped items on the July 2nd agenda.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Those items as read by Vice Mayor Webb will be rescinded to be voted upon again at the next eligible city board meeting. Also, we do know we have enough members of the city board here today to go through. We're waiting on a few that are en route, hopefully en route. So we do have enough to do a majority for the consent. We do not have enough to go more than one reading on the grouped items. I do have a strategy to get us through everything, so I didn't want to go ahead and lift that up. So Madam Clerk, if you would, please read the consent agenda.
The consent agenda consists of a resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Positive Results Lawn Services, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $168,848.40 for the West 30th Street reconstruction project and for other purposes, funding from the limited tax general obligation capital improvement bonds. A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into a contract with Bell Chevrolet in an amount not to exceed $101,000 plus applicable taxes and fees for the purchase of 2 2024 Silverado 2500 crew cab trucks for the Little Rock Fire Department and for other purposes. A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into a contract with Doggett Freightliner of Arkansas LLC in an amount not to exceed $415,518 plus applicable taxes and fees for the purchase of 2 Freightliner 12-yard dump trucks for Public Works Department, Street Operations Division, and for other purposes. A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into a contract with Rainbow International Restoration in an amount not to exceed $92,131.20 for the repair of damages at the Fleet Fire Maintenance Shop due to a recent fire and for other purposes. A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into a contract with Brandon Jones Construction Company in an amount not to exceed $800,000 for the completion of the Western Hills Project Phase 2 and for other purposes. A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into a contract with Hatcher and Company, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $160,000 for the replacement of a portion of the roof at Dunbar Community Center and for other purposes, funding from the American Rescue Plan Act. A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into a contract with ClearGov, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $256,133.53 plus applicable taxes and fees for the purchase of budgeting and personnel software for the Finance Department and for other purposes. A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into a contract with Staley Technologies Little Rock LLC in an amount not to exceed $60,000 plus applicable taxes and fees to connect fiber-based telecommunication networks at Rebsman Park Golf Course and for other purposes, funding from the American Rescue Plan Act. A resolution to transfer the title of property located at 2119 South Martin Street from the city of Little Rock, Arkansas to Stanley Phillips, owner of Phillips Properties of Little Rock LLC, to be used for neighborhood revitalization programs and further purposes. A resolution to transfer the title of property located at 1001 Denison Street from the city of Little Rock, Arkansas to Jonathan Nunn, owner of Nunn Development Group, Inc., to be used for neighborhood revitalization programs and further purposes. A resolution to appropriate $1,500,000 from the Technology Park Special Project to the Central Arkansas Technology Park Authority and for other purposes. That concludes the consent agenda.
There's a motion. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read the group items for the first time.
An ordinance to approve a planning zoning development to establish a planned development commercial title White Timer Revised PDC located at 2500 West 7th Street, Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. An ordinance to approve a planned zoning development to establish a planned development residential titled Little Rock Turnkey LLC PDR located at 1624-1626 Brown Street, Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. An ordinance to reclassify property located in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. An ordinance to approve a planned zoning development to establish a planned commercial development titled Petaway Business District Phase 4 BCD located at 320 East 21st Street, Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Simmons Martin Emergency Group in an amount not to exceed $350,000 plus applicable taxes and fees for an annual contract for Pierce Fire Truck Parts and Services for the Fleet Services Department and for other purposes. First reading.
We'll have someone here shortly, so we'll transition to citizen communication. We'll got Mr. Norwood.
Good evening, good people. I own a property at 5003 Ash Avenue. In January of 22, I got a letter from the City of Planning explaining why they were issuing a citation because I didn't respond to a letter. This is that letter. This is the letter describes the lie that Crystal Green, an employee at the city attorney's office, told all of you not to speak to me. She directed you all to forward all communication to her. This is my Title VI complaint that somehow found its way into my court case. I didn't know that things like that were supposed to happen. My complaint against 2 city employees who've been harassing me since January 22nd. My court case was dismissed with a motion from the city. My attorney was told that Mr. Baldwin was determined to tear my building down. On February 28th of this year, he put a red tag on my unsafe building, tag on my building. This is the city inspector's report. When 2 code enforcement officers went into my building, and the last line on here says that the building is not unsafe to the public. The building is being maintained well. There is no debris on the ground. But in spite of the dismissal of the case being closed in the court, Mr. Baldwin is determined to destroy my building. So the question to you all, because it's your job to police the actions of city employees, why would a city employee target a citizen to destroy his commercial property and delay a commercial development for over 2 years? when it's tied up in court? That is the question. You see, something that elected officials fail to understand, your job is not to police me as a citizen. My job is to police you through elections. Your job is to police the actions and behaviors of city employees, especially road city employees, who are determined to harass, for whatever reason, harass and discriminate against citizens. I'm still waiting on a response from my Title VI complaint. That was issued in September of 2023. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll now go to the second reading. We have the number allowed online. Second reading.
Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
An ordinance to approve a plan and zoning development.
Mayor, we
Oh, we need a motion.
Oh,
Let's go to the second.
Director Adcock, could you do the motion and second to suspend the rules?
Yes, I do.
Could you redo it for us, please? There's a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Second reading of the group items.
An ordinance to approve a plan and zoning development and to establish a planned development commercial titled White Tavern Revised BDC located at 2500 West 7th Street. An ordinance to approve a plan and zoning development to establish a planned development residential titled Little Rock Turnkey LLC PDR located at 1624-1626 Brown Street. An ordinance to reclassify property located in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas. An ordinance to approve a plan and zoning development to establish a planned commercial development titled Petaway Business District Phase 4 PCD located at 320 East Street.
Hey, everybody, can you hear me?
Director Phillips, we can hear you.
An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Sentence Martin Emergency Group in an amount not to exceed $350,000 plus applicable taxes and fees for an annual contract for Pierce Fire truck parts and services for the Fleet Services Department. Second reading.
Second.
There's a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Third reading.
An ordinance to approve a plan zoning development to establish a planned development commercial titled White Tavern Revised PDC located at 2500 West 7th Street. An ordinance to approve a plan zoning development to establish a planned development residential titled Little Rock Turnkey LLC PDR located at 1624-1626 Brown Street. An ordinance to reclassify property located in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas. An ordinance to approve a planned zoning development to establish a planned commercial development titled Petaway Business District Phase 4 PCD located at 320 East 21st Street. An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Sentence Martin Emergency Group in an amount not to exceed $350,000 plus applicable taxes and fees for the annual contract for Pierce Fire trucks parts and services for the Fleet Services Department. Third and final reading.
Members of the board, we've had three readings. Are there any questions? Are there any questions? Are there any questions? Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Items passed. Items 12 and 16. We'll now go back to citizens communication. Ms. Kathy Wells.
Good evening, Mayor Scott and city directors. I'm Kathy Wells. I'm speaking to you just as an activist and citizen here tonight. Please follow our community do-right rule, the guide to our best behavior towards one another. Pending before you is the downtown master plan, including a recommendation to use tax increment financing to make over our central business district and waterfront. That simply means that you city officials will take school revenues that do not belong to you and give them to private developers to finance projects. Obstacles to doing so now will be removed with your help, according to the text of the plan. I have urged you all to ask approval from the Little Rock School Board and Superintendent before taking such a step. No action has occurred to date. It's most distressing to think that the city-school cooperation of decades will be jumped for this purpose, and I urge all of you to consider this most carefully. Delete any TIF recommendations before adoption of the downtown master plan If support from school officials is lacking, please apply the do right rule. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wells. Director Hines, you have a question?
Yeah, we don't assist communication.
Yes.
Mayor, I want to put our board on notice. I plan on introducing 2 ordinances, each essentially identical ordinances per our state statute that allows municipalities to recognize their public safety unions as collective bargaining agents for respective unions. So I've got some draft copies, but I plan on, there's a few more edits I need to make, and plan on giving them to Tom, putting our pony on Friday to have them ready for our agenda on next Tuesday.
Yes, and just for clarification, you say recognize, I believe they're already recognized. Is something different?
It's a formal ordinance that recognizes them as the collective bargaining agents for their respective unions.
Could you help me understand what that means?
It's exactly what it says it means, Mayor. It's a recognition by this board in ordinance form that those are the collective bargaining agents for our respective public safety unions.
Oh, I'm confused. Well, okay, sure thing. I guess I'm just sharing with members of the board, they already are recognized by the city. Members of the board, as you all asked, for a presentation or the opportunity to visit with members of the staff that are focused on the sales tax and the presentations. Clearly, you all have seen the presentations throughout the past 7 weeks. We do have those members available to discuss various different things. And so what I first want to do is bring them up as they come up. We'll first start with public safety fleet. That public safety P, but particular is actually going to be Willie Hinton rather than the 2 chiefs. Chief Helton is out today, but he'll be back later this evening. Chief Dyer is here for any questions specifically on the public safety P as it relates to the public true LRPD, as it relates to the P's portion of that. It will then go to the fleet portion of the public safety. That will be Mr. Willie Hinton. And so we'll have them there. So just want to we'll start with public safety fleet for you all to ask any questions of Mr. Willie Hinton from that standpoint. Then we will go to infrastructure with Mr. John Honeywell. If you have any questions of Mr. Honeywell, if we could get well, I know we have the IT issue, so we won't probably be able to bring that up. I think we do have copies from some of the meetings. We'll then go to public safety infrastructure for a brief overview and any questions. And then we'll spend some time on parks. And we know we'll just let Director Couch just kind of go line by line. And then after he's done, if there's any questions, I know there are some board members who may have some questions from that standpoint. And what you have before you is the current proposal that is online, and want you all to just have that as they walk through it. From that standpoint, I'm going to pass out here shortly as I share with you. So again, this is just for the presentation from the city department directors. That's number one. What I'm about to walk through and I will give to you later, if you all listen just for 1 second, just because I know it's going to go back and forth. I don't want to confuse anyone. What I'm getting ready to present to you verbally, and then I will give to you as they're going through that presentation, is the updated proposal that has Director Compiers. Remember, I went back to the tape. I did say 20 million. And so we are going to I'm going to show you the 20 million that we will update the proposal that you have in front of you. Again, this is today, the proposal you have in front of you. I'm getting ready to share with you. If you all, can everyone get their documents out in front of them, please? Everybody have it out in front of them? All right. So before we go through the presentations, So if everyone are looking at the document you have in front of you, what I shared last week was that I was going to work to find $20 million to update the proposal you have in front of you to increase public safety fleet as well as, public safety fleet as well as infrastructure. And we had a long conversation about a percentage, and ultimately, I know Director Hines can probably appreciate this. While we're making those updates and we're going back and forth with numbers, we still have to keep the 5/8 portion 5/8 and the 3/8 portion 3/8. And so due to calculations, we weren't able to do a 50-50 split just to keep everything in order from the 5/8 capital and the 3/8 permanent. And so essentially what you're going to see before you in this scenario, everybody understand where I'm coming from? Okay. What you'll see before you are what we're going to change and present to you, and I'll give this to you later for your consideration. So yes, we'll get you that. And it's actually online. Yeah. The copy there that the board has in front of them is online. What I'm reading is not online yet, but it will be. If you'll go to littlerock.gov, there should be like a sales tax link. If Aaron, if you'll help Mr. Norwood figure out where it is online. All right. So in this scenario, we are going to, if you'll see on the document that you're looking at, where it says public safety fleet, I believe it says line item number 4. Everyone see that? It says in that line item, it says $37,250,000. That's over 10 years, of course. Annually, that's 3.725. In talking with both of the police chiefs as well as the fire chief, both the police chief, fire chief, as well as Willie Henn, who's over fleet, to do everything to resolve as many issues as possible with fleet, in addition to the work that you all have already done. We're going to increase that number from $3,725,000 annually to $5 million annually. And I'll give you a document, but you can make a notation on there. So that's going to go to $5 million annually. Then, if you go to the public infrastructure portion, particularly line item 30, where it says $40 million for street resurfacing, sidewalks, and infrastructure, $40 million annually, it's $4 million. We're going to increase that number from $4 million to $4.8 million annually, which is a total over a 10-year look back, $48 million. That coupled with some different things, so essentially what we've done, we've added $12,750,000 to public safety vehicles in line item 4. That's a 61.4% to public safety vehicle apparatus. And we've also added $8 million to resurfacing, to street resurfacing, sidewalks, and infrastructure in line item 30, and that's a 38.6 to street resurfacing. So Director Adcock, you asked to make certain I share with you all where that came from. And again, I'm gonna get this document to everyone. I'm just reading it right now so everyone can follow along together. The transfers to public safety fleet and ongoing public infrastructure is a total of $20,750,000. So we transferred $20,750,000 from the document, items within the document you have before you. We deleted line 43 in the document that you have. which says Public Facilities Fund. That's been deleted. That was the money we had in place to fix on existing buildings within the city of Little Rock. We will just have to figure that out through our general fund and our operating budget as needs become available. So we deleted the public.
Mayor, that's line 42.
42, I'm sorry. Yes, 42. Apologize, 42, thank you. Emily. Secondly, we also transitioned $2.5 million from general parks improvements and maintenance in line 10. So line 10, you'll see we have a total of, well, it's a total of 10 years, 29 million. And so we took 2.5 million out of general parks improvements and maintenance in line 10. Next line, in line 11, we took $1 million from general trails and maintenance. So basically, essentially went from 5 million, or 3.5 million to 2.5 million. That's out of line 11. All right, the next is line 17. We took 500,000 out of the senior center and pickleball, line 17. And then next, in line 37, where the Downtown Little Rock Development Fund had $10,750,000, we transferred $750,000, so we only now have $10 million. So instead of 10.75, just $10 million. And so the reason why we did that is because, particularly with the transfers to make, you all don't need to know that, but with all those calculations, different transfers we made, that made everything what it needed to be from the 5/8 standpoint and the 3/8 standpoint, but also after listening to residents, after listening to you all, it increases more money to public safety fleet as well as infrastructure. And what we also heard from our fleet director is that this will resolve, in addition to what you've already done for the past, with the recent 3-year deal for fleet with Little Rock Police Department, what we've already been doing with the police and with fire. In addition to all those dollars, we got additional $5 million. I want to be clear, this $5 million is permanent funding. So they'll have this permanently in police and fire as we move forward. And Director Hines, there's the extra money that goes to infrastructure, that streets drainage, that's on the permanent funds as well. That everyone's discussed. We want to have some permanent funding there for pothole filling, drainage, and things of that nature. Any questions before we go to the explanation of various different things that board members wanted? I thought you wanted to hear this first. And I'll get you this document, but it's probably better for you to scratch out and see this way what you have, and I'll get you this to take home, to study. Director Adcock, I believe your hand is up.
Yes. I would like to see you look again at this and not take so much out of item line 10 and 11. We have put off maintenance on our parks until our neighborhoods are complaining that they're always dirty, that they need new equipment and everything. So I would like for you to look again and leave 10 and 11 alone.
I think I will always look again, but I think one of the things that we heard, Director Adcock, from board members as well as members, everyone think it's not foreign that I'm a strong supporter of Parks and Recreation. And I think we all see that Parks and Recreation has the most funds in this, and that's really not only from a quality of life and place initiative, that's also from a public safety. We got to have things for our youth to do. This will be monumental funding as well from a maintenance standpoint. We got to remember, Parks and Recreation doesn't have anything right now outside of the general dollars they've had for the past 20 years. So this is all going to be an increase. And as I shared with many of you all, I had to figure out ways to get that extra 20 without hurting other areas that you all were passionate about as well. I definitely will take the time to continue to look at that, but I want you all to digest this first because that may, but thank you for that question.
I would like for you to look at line 14 and 15 first, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That won't be possible based on the construction, but that's the reason why we didn't go after that.
Talking to the community, that is the items that they reject the most, I believe.
That's not what we've heard, but thank you for your feedback.
Okay.
All right. Director Hines, any thoughts on those?
No, just,
And the reason I want to give this to you all, and if there's things we want to, at the next meeting on next week, we'll have some time after the short-term rental, but we want to get this out early because we know the short-term rental conversation may be a little long, but it's my goal to get you all this plan. We come back out here as a board to work together, to figure out if there are any more changes that need to be made, but also understand what you all have told me individually, what you want to keep intact. But Director Hines, you're any thoughts on it?
Mayor, I think my only thought initially is that we keep talking in flat numbers on the permanent side of the tax, and I think we need to put a percentage on them. That's what I was trying to calculate here, is what that percentage is. That way, if it grows or shrinks over time, it's self-regulating, and we're not pegging that. It doesn't deal with inflation. So that's my only thought going forward.
Okay, and we'll figure that out. But I think we generally that was the case in 2011. So we'll just make sure the ordinance is exactly like it was in 2011. But unfortunately, as you know, in 2011 they actually came under.
Right, but there's been federal fixes, and since those federal fixes have gone into place, we got back more in line with what we thought the growth was going to be. So I think if you look at the long run average,
Yes, sir.
it's been growing, and the current rate of inflation, I see the sales tax. My old economics professors are playing back and forth between my head that inflation is good for government tax coffers, especially on a consumption tax like sales tax.
Yes, sir. Director Lewis, any thoughts, questions?
Looks good. I was gonna ask, said 10 and 11 is new?
No.
You already have that?
No, what I said was on 10 and 11, so on 10, line item 10, right now, the total was 29 million basically, and we deducted 2.5. And you'll see I'm going to pass out the new document that'll go online, but that'll be deducted by 2.5.
And that's just as things come up for all the parks, because I see the rest of the items, 16, 17, 18, those are specified, but they still fall under park categories.
Yes, but if you'll see 16, so again, that's a great question. So board members, you all look at your document. What she's asking, that we deducted the 2.5, that's general maintenance. That's general maintenance of the 63 parks and things of that nature. However, if you build something new, like in item 16, the sports complex maintenance dollars is not going to come from line 10. It's going to come, if you look to your right, line 16 says 8 million. That's out of capital. To your right, you see 2 million. That's the maintenance associated with that new building, separate and apart from general maintenance. And so that's how that's covered. So the specific items will not be affected by the general fund deduction in line 10.
Yeah, that was the cushion. I see why you removed it.
Let's not say it like that, but it's general maintenance, because there's a lot of things that happen from time to time that can't be associated with the building. Vice Mayor Webb, any thoughts, questions?
I have a lot of questions, and I have only a couple of thoughts that I would share right now. And one of those is I attended a workshop at the Municipal League Conference last week, and the topic was on workforce housing. And the mayor of Rogers talked about the crisis that we have in our state for workforce housing. And when I look at the $22 million in an economic development fund, and they talked about at this workshop how we would potentially be spending, and other places are spending money to create jobs for people who don't live in Little Rock, who don't come back to Little Rock at night to spend their money, who don't pay the taxes on these things that we're talking about. And so we have this crisis of housing, yet we're going to create jobs for people who live out of town, and I think the priorities are a little skewed. I don't expect us to have a full discussion about that tonight, but I thought that was a very interesting topic at the convention, and I'll leave it at that for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
And of course, as always, I would like to have more money from infrastructure, and I think that additional amount is just a drop in the bucket for what's needed.
Thank you. And I think just listening to members of the city board and what they wanted, all members, again, this is just if you all want to make any more changes, we can make amendments. But after listening to each of you all, what I heard was more money for both infrastructure and public safety fleet. But you also, because the city board has a policy to divide all of the infrastructure dollars by 7, unless we're putting $100 million into an additional $100 million, it really doesn't create a lot of money for each individual ward. And so we work to resolve an issue in public safety fleet by putting more in public safety fleet, which thereby with some of these generating revenue dollars that should be coming from these things, and hopefully that'll give more money in the coffers for our general fund to add more to infrastructure in addition to what was just recently passed with the renewed Little Rock bonds. Director Miller, any thoughts, questions?
Thanks, Mayor. I appreciate this document. Certainly it's going to give me a chance to really study it a little bit more. Just a couple of observations and a couple of thoughts. We have this downtown master plan, and we're waiting for the consultants to make a presentation to us. They're not going to make their presentation to us before next Tuesday when we have this discussion. And so I really hope that we can get that before us sooner than later, because if they make this presentation and they're talking about the funds that they need to implement this plan that that citizens paid to have, I want to make sure that we at least give that some consideration. When I look at this document in front of us, I know we have downtown investment, which is listed here, but also item number 14, item number 20 are also part, excuse me, of probably what the downtown master plan may be talking about. I don't know that. I hadn't seen the presentation for sure. No one has, but I really want to press them to get us that information so that when we are talking about and we're lining this up, what can we implement? What type of things are they saying we need to do, or they're recommending we do? Because again, that's going to cost us. We all know it's going to cost. And it almost seems like we may be operating in a vacuum without having that information when we go to finalize this. So please keep that in mind. And then also, again, I like what we're trying to do with affordable housing, which is number 9. Of course, affordable housing, and I'm familiar, Vice Mayor, with some of those discussions about workforce housing. Workforce housing is different from affordable housing. It's 2 different things. Again, if we're going to really start making a dent into our homeless situation, one of the things we need is affordable housing. We have a lack of that, and we have to create more of that if we're going to really make this dent the way that I know we all want to. So again, my initial thoughts certainly deal with getting this presentation about the downtown master plan and seeing how it's lining up with these items that that I can quickly identify will be going toward downtown, but without that final document and without their presentation, I just don't want to, finalize everything.
Yes, sir.
Then they come back, and then we get the presentation, and we got some gaps that maybe we can plug. So let's just try to press them. I don't know.
I'll give you a
if
brief
they
update.
need as much time. They said they're going to take 30 days to make that presentation. They had 8 months. So I just want to press on that, and maybe I see you got some reaction to that.
No, I was just going to share with you, it passed this, the planning commission passed the master plan. They got a chance to look at it. They had a very long planning commission meeting this past Thursday. I believe the vote was, the majority passed it. I think it was 9-2 or 8-3, whichever one, 8-3. And so that it was passed. That'll come before us. I think right now they're just working a schedule.
Working towards July 9.
July 9. So that's going to be way after we have this discussion. Well, I'll say way after, maybe not that,
Well,
a couple of weeks.
It won't be. I mean, at the end of the day, what I would encourage, we can have that. I know they want to be here. They would like to be here in person. We can move it up, but it'll be more of a virtual deal, them explaining it with us. And we probably need to do that. The only thing I do caution is that we do have a timeline. That's the reason why we spent all the month of May to get things to the ballot. So I think many of us were on the executive steering committee. On the executive steering committee meeting with the downtown, I don't think we're going to see many surprises. And so let's try to do a virtual deal then probably.
Well, I was gonna say, July 2nd is the week of the 4th of July, so that might be difficult. So
Yeah.
July 9 is pretty close.
Yeah.
And we can, don't have to see them present, but certainly, being able to get this presentation, did they make a presentation to the planning committee? The
Yes.
developers, were they there in person? They do it online?
They were, I don't know if they were there. Brad, were they there?
They were online.
Oh, well, we may just do it online. If they were there online, we don't have to, we'll shoot for July 2nd, but also that, I know how we can be as it gets closer to that day, but we'll figure out that.
I appreciate that, because again, I think it's just so important. We got some questions. Kathy Webb brought up a question. I'm certainly, I wouldn't share with her that I am meeting with the superintendent. I mean, tax increment financing is a little tricky deal. I think certainly people have to understand that if there's a vacant piece of property right now, you're not getting any taxes from it. There's not any revenue going to the school district, none. And if it's not developed over a period of time, you're still not getting any. But if we can incentivize, I mean, there are some things that I think when you come to talk about tax increment financing, everybody needs to understand exactly what that means. And I think people see one part of it saying about how it affects the school district, but quite frankly, if it's a vacant piece of property, there's nothing happening there now anyway.
Right.
So, again, we need to make sure we have that discussion so that the public can certainly understand, some of those issues too. So I'll be glad to get that master plan and see how it lines up with our downtown investments. And then certainly as I see it, line 14, line 20, and maybe there may be some other things I hadn't noticed on here that may also go towards that. But again, we're taking some money from.
Yeah, so actually, let me help you. So everything that is downtown master plan friendly would be line 14, 20, Then you'll go down to line 37, line 38, line 39, and line 41, and line 43. I think a lot of that came up in the executive steering committee discussions. I'd be surprised if they weren't in there.
Thanks, Mayor. That's my initial reaction to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Pat, and I know we'll have a presentation later with any initial thoughts, concerns.
Well, yeah, I actually wasn't really prepared to talk about this today. I thought we were talking about this next Tuesday. But
And we can, but I know we're gonna have a longer meeting with soccer rules.
Gotcha. A couple of things, just right off the bat. I tend to agree with Joan about taking some of the parks maintenance money out. I know you have to take it out somewhere if you're going to put it elsewhere, but I am concerned, and I did have a conversation with Director Couch at the last Parks Commission meeting. What I would like to see is, and some of this is already out there and it's on the website, you know, how some parks need some major TLC. Some are brand new and don't need anything. And how do we look at all 63 parks to make sure that those are the most used and the aging and have the biggest needs are really taken care of? I would like to see that. I just don't have any idea. What's on the website's good, but it's not all inclusive. Another thing I'm wondering about the sports complex, it's a question I'm getting a lot, is, you know, where in West Little Rock is going to be? Lance and I have had some conversations imagining where would this go in Ward 5? Where are you going to find 80 contiguous acres that are flat? And I don't think you're going to. I don't know if there actually is a place or if anybody's got an idea where the outdoor fields would be. I think there's discussion that the indoor fields would be somewhere downtown. I would just like some more concrete information about those two facilities.
And I'll be, with anything, though, we gotta have funding first to know what we can go look for, at least dedicated funding. So it's not, we can go say, hey, we want this lot today, but if we don't have the funding or aren't able to make my options. So that's number one. But as we've shared, there are some areas in West Little Rock that we believe is possible in West Little Rock. And as there's a question, and again, how do we look at some old Section 1013 land? That's a option, maybe not going to be the option, but we may leverage that. There's some land that's out near Cantrell Road to look at, but we got to figure out how much money we're working with to go do that from that standpoint. And based on what the sports facilities plan that's online, all 90 pages, that's what they've shared with us. But we can go in more detail on that with Leland. And we're ready to start work on getting the real estate professionals to package that. So that's kind of where we are from that standpoint. On West Little Rock, as it relates to downtown Little Rock, there is some land. So there's two portions of land. One that we've discussed with the Clinton Foundation, that's in between the Clinton Foundation, and that's online too as well, the picture of the land, and in between Heifer, not Heifer land, but in between that. So that's one option. So we got to start working with the real estate folks to move forward on that. The second option is something that we've looked at before, is many of you all may not be aware of, but there was an effort to bring a Johnny Cash museum at the downtown post office right there by Axiom and the Simmons building. And so essentially it'll be a land swap where we would work with the federal government to move the post office somewhere else. That was in the works, as there is a precedent there. So we have those are the actual locations we're looking at. But we gotta get real estate people hired, but we gotta get past this place. The first step is coming to terms on the funding and allocation, and then those details come later, because we can't make details without funding. Can't go buy a house without, putting a down payment or some type of deal.
It's also easier to sell something if you can be as specific.
Yeah, totally agree, but we got, catch-22 on this one.
Another, excuse me, another question I have, and I think you're going to do this anyway, but the
the monies for police and fire, will those be broken out between those police and fire? Or will it be one lump sum, or will it be?
It'll be one lump sum because that money doesn't go to police and fire. That money is going to go to fleet. And so, and Director Hinton will, he'll explain that how he buys. But essentially, for instance, right now, he's going to be buying more for fire for the next couple of years. But that doesn't mean he's not buying for police. He'll explain that process and how he buys based on the buying power. But he needs that $5 million to help fire particularly, but also help police.
Let's see, what else? The West Little Rock Fire Station operations, is that enough money? Seems like it's.
Yes.
Is that enough, Lance?
That's what our fire chief has said.
Okay. Let's see. I agree with Director Miller about what he's saying about the presentation about the downtown master plan. I was at the Planning Commission meeting. I saw that presentation. I've been to a lot of them, but there's some pieces of that puzzle that are here. So I think that would be really good if we could see that as soon as possible. I think that's about all I have.
Director Compiers.
Well, just one comment, and then I've got to really go back and study your proposal. If you ask the people of Little Rock what they want public safety, they want to fix infrastructure, and part of fixing infrastructure is to make Cappy the ultimate queen of that, but they want things clean and nice and neat. And I'm going to have to really think hard if we take $3.5 million out of trails and park improvement, if that's going to fulfill that goal. And I'll just have to really look into it and see. So.
Right. And I want to make sure everyone's aware, parks right now has that'll be 26 million that they don't have today. So just be clear. But the money, I guess.
And I mean, this is my first impression, and,
right.
and I may be able to be convinced that that's the right amount of money, but it is the momentum of this city is, I think, to fix up what we have, to bring some things to make people come and stay here. And because we were wise to take the ARPA money to do the plan, now people are starting to realize we have to make downtown what it should be. So those are my considerations, and if I can be convinced that $26 million will fix up the parks, but I know in the park that I'm most concerned about, the rope we put in there and promised Marty Bells we already keep up is falling apart, and it's $200,000 or $300,000. So it goes pretty quickly fixing things up. So, but I'll look into it, and I appreciate you letting us have this information a week ahead. So that's where I'll be.
Sure thing. And again, members of the city board, if you had, we got the $20 million pot based on what you all have shared that you want to kind of keep somewhat sacrosanct. If you have a thought on say, hey, well, instead of the 2.5 million there, take 2 million there. This has to be our plan. And so there's no pride of authorship. So if you all have some thought, let's get that in writing to me. Because the goal, I want to make certain is we've had, before I finish, Director Caprice, you wanted to say something?
No, I appreciate that. And I think that's what, I appreciate you giving to us a week ahead of time. And the opportunity to come back and say, I'd nibble a little bit here rather than cut over here and add back over here. But it gives us the opportunity for a week to do that. And so I think it's good.
Sure, and just one thing, Director Peck. When you all, what I would encourage, let's get that to me in email before next Tuesday. The reason being because you all may say, hey, let's take a little bit here, but it may not be accurate for the calculation of the 5/8 and the 3/8. And so that takes a lot of time to make sure we got to keep it 5/8 and 3/8. So you just can't say, well, take $1 million from capital and put it in something that's in ongoing funds, that won't work. So I just want to be clear from that standpoint. But if you call me, text me, email me rather, we will work together to figure out the best solution on your idea. But again, once you all have this, whatever thoughts and concerns or what you want to transfer in and out, I'm okay with it. There's no pride or authorship. Let's get this passed. Let's be unified. Everything you just shared, Director Computers, we got to get this done to create, we got momentum right now in the city. So, Director Webb, if you have $1 million you want to take somewhere, let's put it in. If the majority city board says yes to that, that's great. Same thing with Director Miller, I really don't care. Because the only thing I care about is getting this passed with these 4 Ps. Director Pat.
Thank you. And this is for Leland, and don't hate me, Leland, but I think information that Leland can supply is going to be so critical because, as we've all said, yeah, it's great and fun to have the shiny new things, but we got to take care of our beloved parks and what they truly need. So I would be hopeful, and I don't know if this is too much of a task to even ask you, Leland, but I have a feeling you have a pretty good idea of who needs what, or generally speaking. And I'd like to know that number to make sure that we can do that, take care of the parks that we have. And that's why I sort of agree with, well, not sort of agree with Joan, and I'm reluctant, as Dean is, about taking some of that maintenance money, because that's why they're in the shape they are now, because
Right.
they didn't have the maintenance money.
Well, that's a great segue. So now we've talked to every member of the city board that's present right now. Because Parks is the leading one, we'll start with that because I think lead is kind of self-explanatory. Leland, if you'll come up.
Oh, you mean you're already prepared?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
You asked me last week to be prepared. And they'll be prepared again for next week too, but we know we're going to spend a lot of time on, I just bet on short-term rentals next week.
Yeah.
We don't have to, again, I want to make certain, I think Leland's presentation to you all, which will leave time for extra questions, we can be out of here by 7:30, so don't think we're going to try to be here to 9 o'clock unless you all want to be here that long. Leland?
Okay, good evening. Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and the board. Mayor, you said go down line item by line item. I'd be happy to do that. I've given other presentations all the last 6 weeks or whatever, so at any time, feel free to interrupt me. I can go into detail or less detail, but I'm excited to go.
Before you start,
Yep.
Director Peck or Director Pierce, is there something really important you all want to hear from Leland first rather than going line by line? We can kind of cut across the field. Director Pierce?
The elephant in the room to me is, and I've told you this since you unfortunately took this job, unfortunately for us, you used to have a lot more hair when you took it. But do you think cutting $3.5 million out of trails and park improvement will be enough to give us first-class parks?
So yes, let me explain kind of how I came to some of those numbers working with the mayor. So, and I don't want to mislead anybody. If we put $100 million into parks, it would be even more unbelievable, right? But there's got to be a cut at some point, okay? So, but let me explain the way I look at it. So at $16.5 million, there's 63 named parks, let's say. Out of that, let's just take 50 of those that we're going to do major improvements to with this $16.5 million. And the reason I say 50 is because the other ones are being improved, like this one, with other funds. Or we're already improving Pankey Park, which is about to have a dedication of a new park, playground. Bull Park is under another big improvement, and on and on and on. I could go through every park. But at 16.5 across 50 parks, that gives you $330,000 per park, okay? Now, some of the parks need more than $330,000, like Riverfront Park, let's say. But there's other parks like maybe 9th Street Park, which is just a city block, and we want to make some small improvements there, and we spend $50,000 there. So at some point, I guess I could do an Excel sheet and break down the $16.5 million to what I think rationally would go to, say, 50 of those parks, or realistically, all the parks at that point. But to answer your question, that's for the capital, for the maintenance side, Dean. Right now, we operate roughly off of $1 million in contract, and then another $500,000 to $1 million. I mean, it's why I don't have pinpointed numbers is because we have several different divisions and they all have their own little budgets, and there's a whole bunch of different little categories throughout all of them. But what I've been reporting to the city is that we're definitely doubling our maintenance capability here, okay, with the $1 million, which was proposed tonight with the cut. And then in trails the same way. The way that I look at trails is currently I've made my own trail division with no money. I thought trails, if you ever hear me speak about parks, I think trails are extremely important. So for us not to have a trails coordinator was crazy. So I took a maintenance person and made him a trails coordinator. So currently I've created a trails out of just maintenance dollars. So for me to have $250,000 where I didn't have any money, so what I can do with that maintenance dollars is actually start to have a crew to maintain our trails. And so I would take roughly a portion of that 250, let's say 150, hire a couple guys in another truck and be able to go maintain trails at a higher pace, as well as hire contract labor to repair things, such as a complaint that I received today that there's a hole in the Arkansas River Trail that hasn't been fixed in a year. Okay, so we could hire somebody to either go fix that or whatnot. So those are just some examples. I could go through hundreds of examples of how this money is going to help us. I do want to say too, and y'all started on this conversation, that what I did was I actually took a lot of the maintenance dollars and put them. So if you look, for example, at number 13, War Memorial Park, there's $1 million there. Okay, so what is that for? So that gives me a line item of $100,000 for War Memorial. So that takes War Memorial out of the question of the $10 million that we were going to have anyway for maintenance. And what do I mean by that? That means that I have $100,000 to where I could hire 2 people and pay them a decent salary to help stand out there all the time and pick up trash and manage a great central destination park, which I think is what's important because we're investing so much in that park. Or I could also hire a contractor to help maintain it at a higher level. So I think there's a mix there. And you can go down that through all the lines. Some of them are a little heavier, such as West Central or something like that, where I know I need money to actually operate the pool. This facility, I was willing to make a cut in the senior facility because after going through even more detailed numbers and some other issues with staff and whatnot, we already have staff at this facility, and I have a lady that just retired that had been here for over 40 years that ran our senior department. And so we're already working to change that job into a job that would help us facilitate this new facility here. So I realized I had some extra money there that I could take and have a little less operating dollars there. Again, those are just the tip of the iceberg, but be happy to go into the next question.
Did those cover your questions? I mean, I have a couple of questions.
Wait, but as a global question, putting you on the spot, and I know you and Frank have worked on this. When we pass this, and when 5 years into this, will we be able to say we're proud of the parks we have in Little Rock, or we've gone from mediocre to a little above average?
You know, Dean, that's
that's
a challenging question.
The issue
right?
that people say to me all the time is we're mediocre, we can't keep up with what's going on, and is this tax going to bring us to a level that we're proud to say we're from Little Rock? And that's the big issue. And that I know that is a hard question to answer. And my initial thought is that over 10 years, you're $3.5 million short of what we were before. But that's the issue that's important to me.
Okay, I'll answer it like this. So as a parks director of the current parks department that we operate, if we were able to have an influx of this kind of money and these kind of operations, I would be extremely proud of what we have. currently, we do not have a sports facility of any kind, okay? So for these operations, yes, absolutely. Could I say, could we have more? Absolutely. I mean, for $5 million for trails, I would love to build a trail to connect every neighborhood, right? To connect every park. That would be $500 million for trails. I don't think we're going to take the whole city budget and factor it just for city trails, right? But you know, at the cost of what things cost, we need more money than, I mean, the quality of life here that we would have for the citizens of Little Rock is something that we would be so proud of, right? But you can't ask me to say, are you going to have enough to do everything you want to do? I'm always going to say, yes, we can build another trail. We can build another, whatever.
We're going to be where we say to the person that comes to visit Little Rock, I'm proud of the parks we have.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Vice Mayor Webb.
Thank you. And just to follow up on one of the things that you mentioned about the senior center, and I think it's because the line item says senior center and pickleball.
Yes.
The cuts are not for what was planned with pickleball at the senior center, just for the things that you mentioned.
That's correct. The senior center, as you know, is already funded with $3 million. The extra $3 million will help us build out a commercial kitchen as well as the pickleball aspect of it. So that's still all on the capital. The money that was cut is just in operations. And the way that I was able to justify that is because we already have operations ongoing at this facility. And we had some other staff that have retired that I'm reclassifying to help manage this facility. So this facility will not be the only senior facility for Little Rock Parks and Recreation. We have one currently at East Little Rock, and we have small offsets in all of our community centers. So we have part-time staff managing the ones in our community centers. We had a lady doing the one down at East Little Rock, and a lady that was managing all of them. So all of that operations, the overarching management of that will be based out of this facility.
Thank you. And just two more quick questions on, in the Little Rock LRCVB plan for a sports complex, they talked about Western Hills as the number one site. And did we just think that is not workable? So that's one question. And then the handout that you passed out at the ward meetings on War Memorial, one of the things it mentioned was kayaking at War Memorial. And I have a question about that.
Okay, I'll cover your first question, which was Western Hills. So just because I've been here, I understand that Western Hills was a study previously, and even previous Mayor Stola had purchased that land to build out. And I only know that because I was the one downstairs designing multiple sport complexes and fields that would go in there. The problem with that location was a couple-fold, and which I believe is why we've pulled that off the list. But out of the 147 acres that are there, there's 30 to 40% of it that is in the floodway and floodplain of Fush. Okay, so yes, you could build some soccer fields there, but you can't build facilities and whatnot. The biggest reason that I understand that we pulled out of that was because of access. And the Western Hills neighborhood, I mean, in fact, that's why we all voted on Western Hills tonight, was because we went through to build a neighborhood park. But the neighborhood wanted it to be a neighborhood park and not a sports facility complex. There was a time that we looked at, and I was a part of that too, trying to develop an entry off of South University. And that cost alone would have been $10 million plus, I don't know what it would be today, but to bridge over Fush from South University in, and then it just kept kind of unraveling, right? I do know that they looked at some other properties in that area, and I think those were similar problems. When I started the process with Little Rock CVB, War Memorial was picked as the number one site. Okay, so the second question was kayaking, and all of that, did you say I commented that, or was it on the plan?
It was written down on that handout.
Yes, okay. So there's always been a concept in a central destination park to have a body of water where you can do small kayaking or fishing from a small boat or something like that. War Memorial currently has, or did have, a pond. It's almost like a creek now because we haven't been able to maintain it, and it's silted in. If you see now, there's big lumps of grass growing in it. We haven't had the dollars to continually dredge it. And so I did a very quick study with the company that we hired, and some of our previous master plans show this too, is how to make changes to the pond to enlarge it and move it to where you have a sediment bay, is what they call it. There's a more of an engineering term for that, kind of where the pond is currently. So you capture all that, and then you actually don't have all that going into your pond. So they've actually enlarged and moved the pond slightly. Those are all details that if we were able to get this $14 million for the capital layout, would all be defined. And we'd have plenty of input from neighbors and everybody. If we decided that we didn't want a pond or we didn't want to have people accessing the water, those things could be changed.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and that was helpful.
Director Adcock?
Yes. Mr. Couch, item number 10 on this. I see the large amount and everything. I would like for you to break that up for me, not tonight, but in the next few days before we meet again. I want that broke up into maintenance, which is cleaning, clearing out the underbrush and everything. Secondly, equipment, new playground equipment, other equipment that we are going to put into the parks, maybe some splash pads. Third, the sports that are going to be added to the parks. And then fifth, last week I learned that you have a group of people that they pick up large trash cans, and some of them dumps dumpsters and some cleans restrooms. So how much of this total amount is going to go to that type of things, of keeping the parks clean on a daily basis and everything?
Yes, ma'am.
And then I would like for you to give us a list of all the city parks and kind of prorate where the money will be spent. Are you going to do it by large parks, get X amount of dollars, and smaller parks, less money? Or what will you do in deciding which parks will receive what?
Well, I'll answer that just briefly, and I'll get you a breakdown, and there's a lot to unravel there. But just in short, a lot of that is based on what I started with tonight, was that we've been lucky to have some ARPA and bond money and some other sales tax dollars early on that are still relevant in our parks system. So the parks that have had a new playground and they don't need to be replaced, or a new restroom, or something like Western Hills, right? We're putting roughly $1.5 million into Western Hills. Probably not going to allocate much of this money to Western Hills. The maintenance, yes, because we were going to have to increase our maintenance there. But from a standpoint of, are we going to put some kind of new capital feature there? No. We'll go look at another. And Heinemann is already, as you know, is already on this list. And it actually has the $100,000 similar to War Memorial, so that we can fund that maintenance there separately. So I'll go through with what you've requested and do a breakout as much as I can in terms of every part. But as you know, as I do that, it's going to vary greatly based on, okay, I would say like Moorheart, for example. I'm sitting on a master plan. We've wanted to redo Moorheart for a long, long time. It needs millions or so dollars, depending on the direction we go with that master plan. So is that a line item in here? No. But do I think we could take a little bit more from the general parks and put it in there, and less at, say, Pankey or these other ones that I've mentioned, Western Hills? Yes. So I will do my best to do a breakout that'll explain that. And we'll do that from a capital side and a maintenance side. Yes.
I know that we put down south end, we put a splash, and the children love the splash. But when you talk to other neighborhoods and they look at this, they want to know, what's it going to do to my park in my neighborhood? And that's what I'm looking for. How are we going to decide who gets a splash pad, who gets a new swing set? At the Municipal League this week, I saw some swing sets that things I've never seen before in a park. So which parks will get those new equipment and everything? And I'd like to have some way of telling people this is what you'll get for your park and your neighborhood with this sales tax.
Absolutely. One caveat to that is to master plan out 63 or, hundreds of 6,000 acres or whatever in a week or whatever, it's just not going to be that detailed of a plan down to the bench or whatever that's going to be there. I will get as close as I can and show you the big picture, but there's a lot of things that go into this work. So a splash pad, we have to make sure we have the water, we have to make sure we have the accessibility, we have to have the restrooms. Anyway, there's a lot that goes into that, and I don't want to mislead anybody by making a list that we share publicly and then we say, well, we got you. You said we're going to put a splash pad at so-and-so location. Well, I found out from the permitting process or whatever the challenge was that we couldn't do that at that location. So I experienced that with Crump Park. Crump Park was given $1 million to build a pond there in the previous sales tax. Somebody pushed that along for a long, long time, and then eventually somebody asked me to develop $1 million pond at Crump Park. Tell me where to build a pond in Crump Park. There was no land to build a pond that sufficed for a pond. There just wasn't. So we backtracked and went in and had to go back to the neighborhood for a long period of time, buy some additional property, and convince them that a splash pad for their neighborhood would be so much better than another body of water that is challenging for us to maintain, let alone there wasn't any place to put a pond. Okay, there was sewer, fiber optics, we would have spent $1 million just removing all the utilities. So I don't want to get myself into a situation to where we go so far down defining it just on paper and then ultimately we can't do it. But I'll give it my best shot to where we have a big picture to look at.
Thank you.
All right, we'll now transition to Public Works. I think yours can be rather brief, John, and then if there's any questions from members of the board. Yours is pretty
Yes, sir. So
concrete.
I'll open up to questions. I think everybody knows
I'm glad you
what our
got that.
infrastructure needs are, streets, drainage, sidewalks, that kind of stuff. So.
Boardman, any questions about Director Webb? Any questions about Public Works?
Thank you, Mayor. I was able to spend about an hour or so with Director Honeywell and multiple people at Public Works today. So I'm good for right now.
All right. Director Miller, are you good? Director Peck, are you fine? Director Pierce, any questions? All right, Director Adcock.
Mr. Honeywell, one thing that we're hearing more and more with all the speeding in the neighborhoods is that people want speed bumps. And I would like for us to see some way that we could incorporate more speed bumps into our infrastructure. I know we have so many needs and everything, but when you're in the neighborhoods, that's what people are talking about, to slow down the vehicles because of the danger to the children and for people backing out of the driveways.
Okay.
Thank you.
Director Hines.
So, John, on resurfacing, because as in our meeting last Tuesday, you told us that we absolutely don't spend any of our state turnback funds to do resurfacing, which I still find that pretty amazing. I still think 4.8 million is just a drop in the bucket, and we need to figure out how to do more with the dedicated funding, because the state turnback funds we get every year dwarf what we'll ever collect as a permanent sales tax. How far, I'd like to see some hard data on where we are on street resurfacing based on, how often we should resurface our major arterials, minor arterials, then collector streets and residential streets. I think that's, if we don't have I don't know, we were handcuffed a little bit by dividing up equally by the wards, but I think there's always more than enough work to go on by ward. But I'd like some more data on what actually that number is, because I, in order to get our head above water and continue, we took our foot off the gas pedal. We had a 10-year resurfacing program And we've taken our foot off the pedal for the last 4 years, and that's put us way far behind. So I'd like some data, if you could get us on, what you guys think it actually needs over time. I know this gets it starts making some headway, but we've got to figure out some other funding sources to get.
And we're actually currently right now have a resurfacing evaluation and then a plan. I hope y'all can hear me okay. That we should have our evaluations. We feel like our consultant's going to have the evaluation of all of our existing payments wrapped up by the end of this month. And then they're going to be working with us to create a pavement plan that's going to outline how we should be approaching all the different ways that we'll be trying to maintain our paved surfaces, either through resurfacing, is it some other kind of treatments you do on those to extend the life of those pavement surfaces? Is it replacement overall? So that we're going to come up with that plan for a multi-year thing. So we should have that hopefully in the next month or so as a completed plan. But the evaluation we should have, as far as what our streets actually look like today, by the end of this month is what we're anticipating.
And I know we're going to have a conversation with you after this, but when I see us do resurfacing on a major collector street through one of the largest neighborhoods in West Little Rock that's actually in Director Pack's ward, and we've got substreet failure on bridges and bridges, 3 bridges in that area that I don't think we've done a lick of work on in probably 30 years, and it shows that I fear that in that area, because what it's created now is a place for water to stand, and the resurfacing we just did on that section of that street is probably going to blow out in less than a year, just based on what I've seen in other parts of the city. So, that's my question. It's great we've got resurfacing, but we've got to focus on some of the underlying issues, because that's just putting a Band-Aid on a situation on that stretch.
And that's what this plan is going to address, some of the stuff you're talking about of what's going on versus just putting asphalt on top of it. We're going to look at it as a more holistic thing across the whole spectrum of what's going on with those pavements.
All right, Willie, if you'll just briefly explain the 5 million, and then I know board members, if they'll have some questions, they'll reach out. Then I'll finish up with the 4th P.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. The chief and I have been talking for quite some time about what that funding level should look like, and if 5 million actually works for us. And just to correct something that the mayor said earlier, is the initial funding from the new tax will be heavily concentrated for the first few years with police, not fire, because we have so many fire apparatuses ordered with bond funding, and those apparatuses need to get here. Some of them are still 2.5 to 3 years out. They're on order, and that funding will make us hold in the fire department as far as getting as many vehicles on the street as we need. We do plan to allocate a little over $2 million a year for fire and $3 million for police. Fire apparatuses last 15 to 20 years on a pumper and 20 to 25 years on a ladder truck. During that period, you will turn over multiple police units, and you'll turn them over a lot, right? And the cost of a police unit now, well, firstly, the cost of a fire apparatus is right at $1 million for a pumper. It's right at $2 million for a ladder truck. And of course, a patrol unit for a police vehicle is now with everything except the communications equipment that go in it, is between $55,000 and $60,000 per unit to get it upfitted and on the street. So we'll be allocating $3 million a year for police. And that does get us where we need to go, right? It beats having no funds at all to do it with, just to be frank with you. Because every time I come before y'all before, we needed to get a short-term note, we needed to lease vehicles, we need to do that. This $5 million sets all that straight. We can work our way out of leasing, and every year we will replace the quantity of vehicles that we need to replace and keep our officers on the street. The other thing that it does do as well is get us to the single-use patrol fleet, which we're after big time, because all of you want your patrolmen able to respond from wherever they are. Every one of you do. I do. I know where I live. I like to see patrolmen out there. They're not there a lot. I'm in West Little Rock. And a lot of it is because we need to keep people in certain spots, right? No police vehicle or production vehicle or either of your vehicles is made to run 24 hours a day. Not a single one of them, right? And we run multiple ones 24 hours a day now, right? And that just breaks them down, and you have to turn them over a lot faster. So with the split that we're talking about maintaining, which both Chief Hubbard and Chief Helton agrees, we can actually keep everybody whole and ready to respond, which is my goal. There will be years where we would spend $3 million on fire apparatuses and $2 million on police, and vice versa. But the initial 2 years, when we actually, in 26 and 27, most of the funds will be spent on the police, because we do have the bond funds that have made fire closer to a point of being able to be productive when keeping the vehicles on the street versus in the shop.
And thank you for that correction. I did get them flipped when I was talking initially.
We've talked too much until
It gets flipped in your head. Director Computers? And remember what he's saying is fire's taken care of with what we just got passed. We just got to get them here. So that's essentially. Director Computers?
Willie, when you look at buying fire apparatus and you're 2 or 3 years out, when you buy a piece, how do you buy it? Do you order it and then pay for it? Do you put a deposit down? What do you do?
No, sir. We order it and then we pay for it, right?
So you order, when Joan buys her next new car, she goes down and orders it, and when it comes, she goes to the bank and takes cash out and gives it to them.
That's what I do too.
Right. Okay. So when you do it, you don't have to put a deposit down.
No, sir. This city has a AA or AAA credit rating or bond rating. No one's going to ask us for a down payment. And if they do, don't give them one, right? When we got here, fire was doing some of that. And I'm like, we shouldn't be paying anything down. We can draw more money in interest than the break that we're getting on the price of that vehicle. So, no, sir, we don't pay anything down. And anybody that we want to order from will let us do that.
So my point is that, and I thought your point of a pumper lasts 30 years and a police car lasts a year or two.
Yeah.
But you can give us a spreadsheet of what you're going to do each year.
Yes,
and
sir.
you can start ordering things now that it's going to take 3 years if you don't have to put a deposit down, knowing that the money's there.
Yes, sir, we can. That's what we did with the, that's what we actually did with the fire apparatuses that we got now, because we know some of them are going to take 3 years. And we know what the lead time is.
I know, but when we have this, I want a spreadsheet that says, this is the amount of money, this is what we're going to do it, and I want the two chiefs to say, I bless this.
Okay. I'll have it to you tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Willie.
Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry, Director Miller.
Thank you. Director Hinton, you may have already talked about this, and the city may have already talked about this, and I may have forgotten. But what's our strategy on electric vehicles? Are we trying to replace so many? Is the goal to be a certain percentage electric vehicles? What's the strategy on that as it deals with EVs?
So, Director Miller, yes, sir, we do have a strategy behind that. And what you may not know is we already have 13 level 2 charging stations installed in the city. We now have 20 electric vehicles. Before the end of the year, we'll have 40, right? They will be out at different alert centers and housing and in planning and places where we put charging stations already. Over at the 6th Street station, where we used to have CNG, we're getting ready to install a level 3 charging, some level 3 charging stations, where we have some federal funding coming from it. And I saved the money that we sold the old CNG equipment with, because that was grant money that we got. So we need to put it back to a light use. So we're using that to install those level 3 chargers, which will be available to the public. And those chargers will charge your car in 12 to 30 minutes, right? And there will be 4 stations over there. And as we after we get that ready, we plan to put at least another, well, we'll have 80 electric vehicles into the fleet next year, right? In the administrative areas, places like housing, planning, some of the administrative areas with police. But we do have a strategy for it. And because we have a goal of having X number in the fleet by 2030, I don't have it with me right now, but I can send that to you as well.
Thank you. I was just curious about the strategy and what percentage we're going towards, and I think you'll be able to present that.
It's happening. It is happening. It's not going to stop. It may slow down for a minute, but it's not going to stop.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you, Director Hinton. Unless there are any more questions for Director Hinton? All right. Yes, ma'am.
Maybe for you, excuse me, I've asked this question before and I'm still a little bit confused. So on line item 31, the sustainable infrastructure, I believe, Mayor, you told me that part of that is for EV charging stations, is that right?
Yes.
The sustainable infrastructure?
Mm-hmm.
And so, Willie, I'm hearing you say we're getting a lot of these through federal grants. I know RDOT's got some grants, but are we going to need so many that we need to earmark some funds for EV charging stations?
Well, we have to actually match some of those funds that we're getting.
Other matching grants.
That's what it's for.
So this would be extra money to do that.
And is that whole amount for EV charging stations?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
There's a difference between the level 2 and the level 3s, right? And the level 3 costs a lot more.
Yeah.
So, but they charge a lot faster.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No. Thank you, Director Hinton. We really do appreciate you. The final P is port and economic development. I think we all know how successful the Little Rock Port Authority and our economic development team and ARM has been over the past 5.5 years with 11,000 new jobs directly related to the land that we have at the port that we're marketing and also working to build a mega site. Are there any questions about that funding? Are there any questions about that funding?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I see on line 34, specifically the port infrastructure and expansion, but what about line 33 right above it, the Economic Development Impact Fund?
Yes, so the port, that is specific to the 8 million, specific to, on 34, thank you, the land acquisition, infrastructure expansion of the port as we go more south towards Riceville, not Riceville, but go that southern border as we're building a mega site. That's specific for that, where once passed by you and hopefully passed by the residents, as they try to acquire land, they'll come back to City Board, as Brian Day normally does with us. The economic development incentive is adds on top of that because certain companies may say, hey, we need a new charging station with energy and it's going to cost X, Y, and Z. So the 22 million goes towards site selection, infrastructure, utilities, and all of that's for any business in the city, not just solely in the port. And so there have been different areas of the city where we've had to utilize infrastructure dollars, not solely in the port. And so that's what those dollars are for. And again, each project will come before the city board.
I have one more.
Yes, ma'am.
So back line item number 8, the homelessness. Is that for housing? What is that for?
Yes, the home, as you all know, the American Rescue Plan Act that allowed us to build the 209 tiny homes that'll be in that complex that will hopefully open up later this summer. We'll have before you a modification to or add to the next agenda some more construction that's being done from that standpoint. We thought it was going to be on this agenda, but I think it's going to be on the next one. So that'll be that. We still have to operate. We have about, I believe in the budget you recently passed, about $500,000. And that gets us from the time being when it opens into the next year, but we know we're going to need some additional funds. And so that's where you have there from that standpoint.
And it's really going to open this summer?
Yes, late summer.
Okay, thank you. So it's operations.
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, can I follow up on that just a little bit?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I've been getting some questions about the micro village, and I go by there a lot just in traveling. When are we going to break ground? I mean, I know that we had to make some adjustments for plans, but some people have asked me, because we had the the groundbreaking or whatever we call that several months ago, and I know that we had a hiccup and we had to do some redesign work. But when people ask me this question...
Tell them late summer.
Late summer is when we're going to break ground.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And once you all pass this upcoming ordinance, it'll kickstart it even faster.
Okay. And not related to that, but I may make it my business to ask every week, where are we on the city boardroom I may just ask that every week until we got it, because again, I've been here since 21. It's been 3 years. I know we've had issues. I'm not, I'm gonna press on this from now, probably every week, and ask for an update, what we've done and where are we and when can we get in there, because again, I want this facility to go back to the seniors, what it was entitled, what we said we were going to do. And certainly, Mayor, that even last year, I believe you made a statement, you're going to have this room back next month. And that was about a year ago. Stuff happens, and I understand stuff happens, but I'm going to ask probably on a weekly basis, give us an update on the City Hall boardroom.
Yes, sir.
So just be prepared for that.
July, but I'll say late summer.
Of this year?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what we were told, but we were told July, but I'm going to say late summer. Yeah, exactly. So I'm telling folks late summer. All right. So seeing no other questions on port, so members of the board, thank you for taking time to walk through these changes. I've passed it out to you. If you have thoughts or ideas on that $20 million on how to retransfer some things, please get that to me and we'll work to figure out to make certain it fits within the 5/8, 3/8. There's no pride of authorship. This has to be a city board initiative. We got to be unified for those who are very supportive of it. And so just make certain, just let that know, put that in writing, and we'll get it done. The goal is, and we know we're going to try to expedite virtually. So Emily, if you'll get with Gabe and let's try to see if we can schedule, and we don't even have, it may be a situation, it may not have to be on July 2nd. We may have a Zoom where we're not even here. It doesn't have to be on a Tuesday. That for those who want to get the downtown master plan, the city, we can all log on and get that. Well, I guess we'll make it public, but we'll figure that out. We can get that expedited because they don't have to actually be here. It actually may save money on our contract with them. So we'll get that scheduled. And so if you got any questions, put it in writing to me and we'll make those changes. There's no pride of the authorship. Clearly, whatever it is, you guys got to vote on it. But the goal, because we got a timeline, we spent all the month of May. We also still got to re-educate the residents about any changes that we made and updates. We also got to get it to the ballot. And so we want to leave time for that educational awareness campaign to get there. So I would love for us, and again, any changes you all make to the plan right now, I really don't care. What I care about is getting this passed and to the people, because we don't have $650 million focused on public safety, public infrastructure, parks and recreation, and the port. So anything extra is great. Now, clearly I care about some things, but the goal is we got to be on one accord and move together to focus on quality and life and place. So if you guys got changes, get that to me, and we'll attribute that to you as to what you wanted. But I think where we are, as Director Computer said, he may need to be convinced on certain things because he may not want us to cut that 2.5 from somewhere else, because I know where he wants to keep sacrosanct. We'll keep that between ourselves. So he'll talk with Leland, and they'll have their conversation, and hopefully he'll feel good about it. But moving from there, next week we have the short-term rental discussion, and we'll have some time allotted for this. And if hopefully we got some more questions, and our department directors are going to get you the information you asked for today. I really believe we can have, hopefully, because the actual ordinances are very, not to say rudimentary, but very simple. And so hopefully we could be voting on this the first available board meeting in July. And that it gives us a lot of time to get it to the county. But that's on you all on that timing, but we got to think about that as well. Any questions?
Mayor, if we're through with that, I just want to just take a second just to say that I had attended a number of Juneteenth events this past Saturday, and a big shout out to LRPD. They were out there in force. I'm not familiar, hadn't heard of any incidents that took place, but they were out there in full uniform, working outside. It was scorching heat. But they were doing their duty, and I really appreciate that, and I think the public does too. And I just
the fire department
and MIMS and all the public first responders, but they were out there in that heat, particularly the police department, the way they're dressed up. And I'm just looking at all that they had on, the uniforms and all that equipment, and out there keeping us safe and keeping the events moving forward. And I just want to publicly thank them for that.
Thank you. Any questions? There's a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, meeting adjourned.